Hi, I'm Don.
And hi, I'm Cindy. Welcome to Pearls of Liberty, July 21st, 2012. This has been a very sad week in many respects. Many people are thinking about the mass killing in the movie theater in Colorado. And if you follow the Liberty movement at all, you know there's a lot of talk about mind control, so on and so forth. And Don can bring some clarity to a lot of that.
Okay, yeah, it's pretty much obvious to anybody who is aware of the data points, and don't expect the truth to come out in mainstream media, but there's all kinds of things that point to a false flag, black ops, psyop type of event. And I'll just mention a few of them off the top of my head. This shooter got off something like 71 shots, killed 12, maybe more, 14 now, people, injured 50, and without stopping to reload. Odds are there were other shooters involved that were not revealed. The guy had tear gas canisters. Yeah, you can make tear gas, but in military canisters, no. And a whole bunch of other supplies that were at his home, which was booby-trapped, and definitely speaks to a connection to the military of some sort that wasn't obvious. The guy had been in some kind of a class, I can't remember what it was, that in a university level where you would expect that, oh, it was a neurophysiology class, and so you would expect that at some level some people that were involved in brain chemistry would be aware of this guy. And the guys at high levels, like university levels, would typically be screening people for their susceptibility to mind control. Not all people are equally receptive. The fact that this guy informed just stopped shooting at some point and gave himself up without killing those that he was giving himself up to, and then confessed that told them that his apartment was booby-trapped. Why did he do that? To me, that looks like his mind control programming was breaking down to some extent. So something had happened to this guy, and odds are that he was on some kind of medication. Again, that kind of thing is getting out less and less when we find out that the vast majority of these psycho shooters and women that kill their children, etc., are on some kind of SSRI, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, that blocks the normal nerve impasses until they just explode in violent behavior. I would hope that this kind of thing would come out. It might not, because there is so much money in the pharmaceutical industry to pay people off to keep that out of the public scrutiny. So there's a whole lot more here than meets the eye. One of the interesting things is that, and the timing of this event is very suspicious. 2 weeks before the Senate is scheduled to vote, maybe it's less than 2 weeks now, maybe a week before the Senate is scheduled to vote on the UN Small Arms Treaty, which would, some people say it wouldn't, but yeah, it has that potential to ban small arms at a certain level, semi-automatics rifles in the United States. So, and apparently there's something like 2 votes shy, and this kind of thing will definitely swing the vote towards an anti-gun or a pro-gun control mindset in the country, and make those votes available to cut down, limit Second Amendment rights, which is not constitutional. The Second Amendment is your gun permit. It's just ridiculous how far this thing has gotten. So, and here's my 2 cents on that. People that say, well, we ought to have reasonable regulations and we ought to have some kind of a, you don't want to allow psychos to buy guns. Look, the crime is what's done with the gun. The crime is not having the gun. Whenever you try to make society safe by passing laws that you think will help make you safe, you're actually just creating a police state. If Americans are going to live in a land of liberty, we need to be okay with risks, with the risks that involves. We can't keep trying to make society safe. Do you really want mandatory psychological evaluations before you buy a weapon? Because when you go down that road, that's what's going to end up. You're going to end up with police control. At the very least, what you get is a police database so they know who has what weapons, and that basically defeats the whole point of the Second Amendment, which is to make the people a threat to the government. That is, arming the people is the bulwark against tyranny, and that's been etched away at for many, many years and doesn't need to go farther. So that's my 2 cents on that. The good thing that we're seeing now, at least at this point, is that the people that are pro-Second Amendment are so conscious that this event would be used to bring in gun control legislation, that they are alerting people to it, and there is not nearly the amount of pro-gun control sentiment being voiced right now. And that's in large part because more and more people are aware of this tactic. So it's all very deep involved, and there's a whole lot of data points and detail. An excellent summary article, real quick summary, was Mike Adams, Natural News, some key reasons why this event is a false flag event, the title to that effect, and it really hit some of the key points, and I've mentioned some others too. But this is a very weird time in America where you have actually announcements, and Alex Jones has made this clear, well, we're going to keep you safe from the evil villains, and the police commissioner is making these announcements. It's almost like they're trying to brainwash the sheeple into thinking they're part of some kind of Batman movie, and we're living in this Twilight Zone reality. It's really strange. And when people go into a fear mode, that's what happens. You get into susceptibility to programming. So fear is your enemy. Don't buy into the fear, and look it straight in the eye, right in front of you. I love this Hunter Thompson quote that I came across recently, where don't let fear get behind me. Keep it, you can't hide you. Keep it in front where you can keep an eye on it. And we all have to be aware of our susceptibility to being manipulated by fear. And that'll go a large way to setting ourselves free from the control that this kind of event can have on us as a people.
One of the issues with at first blush it might sound good, make people take a psychological test before they get a weapon, but who gets to decide who's sane and who's not? And so much of the focus here is on weapons, when the real focus, the real question, what should be legal, is the SSRIs, and it's not confirmed at this point that this man was taking antidepressant drugs or any other psychotropic drugs, but only 35 miles away from where this occurred is Columbine, and that there's that corridor there not too far from Colorado Springs, and where the Cherokee Castle was, where allegedly the human sacrifice was to take place on June 21st, and it's an interesting area, and the relationship to Columbine is interesting. The fact that it only happened 35 miles away, and as Don mentioned, the SSRIs, one of the Columbine shooters had been taking antidepressant drugs, and a whole list of high school shooters was taking antidepressant drugs, and we'll put up the video. 90% of the mothers who have killed their children were on SSRIs, and we'll also put up that video as a reference point. So this is a very serious issue, and as Don said, it's been stifled, and there's a great article that he read by John Rappaport, and we'll also put up a link to that, that just states how the media and even the courts have downplayed the role of these types of drugs in what we consider random violence in our culture. So definitely something to think about as time goes on. These are probably this is where we should be looking if we want to prevent these types of occurrences in the future.
One more little point is that the theater was in a no guns allowed zone, whatever the verbiage is for that. And look, you already have these regulations that are supposed to prevent this. And the thing is, do we want to live in a police state where everybody is searched? I don't think so. I certainly don't. So these grandstanding type of gun-free zone type of things and gun control legislation, all it's doing is it's taking away freedom, and what's really behind that is taking away individual responsibility. The truth is, if open carry were encouraged, you would have had somebody take out that shooter before he had killed so many people. And I've seen a comparison of two different events, one in which that very thing did happen in this event. So the answer isn't to get rid of guns and, oh, guns are terrible. Come on, let's look at the cause. And it's not guns, it's a sick society. And the entrance, drugs is a big part of that, prescription drugs. And the very strong possibility of mind control in this area, it's a central location to the North American military-industrial complex area. There are abundant resources that could have been used to do that, and Cindy's already pointed out the Columbine connection based on the location. Yeah, this is a very intense area for those that can do this kind of programming and this kind of manipulation.
We do want to touch on the transformation in the economic system that it has been stated is on the horizon, and we have come to understand through a certain channel that there are three groups that are struggling regarding this change.
It's actually a theory, but to us it makes a lot of sense, so we'll just throw it out there. And it's just something that we're aware of through private chat, but not any real inside sources. And it's still just a theory, and we kind of connected a couple of dots, and it made sense. The shift to a new global economic system that we've talked about previously, and other people have abundantly, such as David Wilcock, Benjamin Fulford, all of the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. That's one block, the BRICS nations. Another block, probably a separate entity, is the big oil money. And that is not necessarily in the camp of the cabal, because we've had this cabal power breaking down. We've had the cabal people being isolated, but we still have this monopoly that has been created where oil is the power source and the raw material resource for plastics, etc. So much of the current economy is based around oil. That doesn't mean it's all still controlled by the cabal. So that's a separate entity, and then you have the cabal people. The oil people obviously will need to transition into a new economy where there is free energy available, but at this point in time you have nations with abundant oil reserves that should have currency valuations much higher than they are, which should begin to build wealth in those nations, and there's people that are fighting for that to happen. So it's a three-way power struggle, and not only is the cabal diminishing in power, but you've got these two other forces that are trying to work out, well, how do we allow this transition to happen? How can we make it so that the people are more free and not less free under the emerging system? So that is an interesting development. And another, I'll go ahead and mention a little bit of the Wilcock blog that came out this week. It was really interesting, a lot of detail in it. For those of you like myself that have accepted for a long time that the global Anglo-American banking cabal is basically centralized, it's not a huge deal to have all these data points connected. But there are researchers that have now done that, and they have basically said it's like a bow tie, the way that it's all knotted in the middle. All these resources that spread out come from one central area, and there's a few corporations and a few people behind it. So that is research that has been done and is now getting out there so that people can see that this isn't just a theory. There are very real data points that prove it.
And David Wilcock also mentioned the LIBOR scandal and the decline of the ability of the cabal to cover up what they're doing. And it appears as if some things are almost falling like dominoes at this point. And he stated that according to his sources, 70 to 75% of the American military are no longer supporting the cabal, but on the side of the good guys.
Yeah, that's great news. So there's a lot of encouragement in that David Wilcock blog, and I'm sure more will be coming out. Oh yeah, that was the main thing, is that I was trying to think of. He mentions that really people have been expecting these mass arrests, and we've mentioned that possibility in the past, and then Fulford and others pulled back from that, said we're not going to give dates anymore. And now Wilcock is saying something that makes intuitive sense, and why didn't we think about this before, is that it would not be good if there were these mass arrests before people know what's going on. The whole thing needs to move slowly. You need to have phases where the legal process is developed, where indictments are developed, and that has been happening in the background, but it's going to be accelerating, and at some point people are going to realize that there is a shift, that people are being exposed, and hopefully that will begin to hit the mainstream media, and even your average dumbed down TV watching American sheeple is going to think something's going on here, and they will be prepared for the arrests and the big change that's going to happen. That makes a lot of sense to me, because if it doesn't happen gradually like that, then people are not going to know who to trust, and it's just going to create a lot of confusion, and people are going to not have any trust for one another, and it will contribute to the breakdown of society, which is exactly what the cabal want. So that they want chaos, so that they can say, we need the military and impose order, and then they control it again. So I think the slower moving thing is good, but it is accelerating, and it's not going to take forever, I don't think.
As many significant events in life, when we're waiting for something, it always seems like it takes forever, and then when we're on the other side of it, we realize that really not all that much time had passed. And I think just a good watchword, if you are someone who believes that Creator is watching over us, is be still and know that I am God. We all do what we do, and we must continue to do what we feel called to do. But I think in the case of the cabal, we need a little extra push to tip the scales, a little extra weight, and I do believe that that weight is coming from the Holy God.
Just to tie that in with Benjamin Fulford's blog this past Monday or Tuesday, he use the example of the Soviet Union and the fall of the Soviet Union, and when we look back on it, we think like it happened in an instant. He pointed out that it actually took more than a year, took a few years from the first strike in Poland, the dock workers' strike, to the actual full collapse. And the full collapse was not like we often like to think, that it was due to their economic system failing. What was happening was that their foreign reserves were being pulled away as their standing in the world community lessened. And this very same thing is happening to the global banking cabal. That's why it's tough to be in the United States, because the rest of the world sees what's going on and the rug's being pulled out from under our economic system, and those of us that see it and know it's happening, we want the new thing, but it's not time yet. So it won't be too much longer, I don't believe, and hopefully it'll be smoother rather than abrupt, so that there will be less opportunity for grandstanding and posing as saviors.
Thanks for watching.
So there's a lot out there now that's going on, but you need to think for yourself. Connect the data points, search out answers, think for yourself.